Today's alternative title is Don't Do This If You Want to Have a Successful Career as a Musician. But that's clickbait even by my standards, even if it is a technically accurate title. A good network and peer group is about as important as your technical ability if you want to succeed as a musician. It's really not that big of a secret. I started building my network at university, but the twist is that I did not study music there. I was in the Live Music Society, and it was here that I joined my first, somewhat ill-fated, uni student band, the beautifully named Your Father's Fault. I had the best band names. Comment below the stupidest band names that you've heard, or better yet, have had yourself. This is a story of one of the biggest faux pas I ever made as a performer, what I learnt from it, and how I was actually a lucky son of a bugger despite this. Your Father's Fault was a strange entity. We were a five-piece that covered a range of styles, but if pressed, I would have to categorise us under the largely meaningless umbrella term British indie rock. We had inspiration coming from Radiohead, Stereophonics, the Buzzcocks, the Beatles and Pink Floyd, a hodgepodge of the last half-dozen decades of rock and alternative. Even more unusually, I wasn't the frontman, nor was I the singer. I wasn't even the lead guitarist. I was a humble rhythm guitarist and backing vocalist. I know, right? I quickly realised that I was the least talented musician in the group by degrees. These guys knew mysterious, complicated terms like modes and relative minor. I was still referring to each note on the guitar by the fret number. I had some terrific performances with that band, and the music we produced was fantastic, I have to say. I had relatively minimal creative input, but that didn't bother me hugely, as it was such a pleasure to play with them. For the most part. Two of the members of the band were in the committee for the Live Music Society Livestock, one even being the president. You would expect this to be a positive boom for a student band. It implied we had access to all of the best contacts, the best live slots, the best opportunities. This was definitely not the case. As people and as musicians, everyone in the band was great, don't get me wrong. They did, however, consistently maintain this bizarre notion of humility. This took form in always putting our band last on every single bill at every single event. At each show, open mic and gig they arranged, Father would be the last in the running order, regardless of literally anything, so as to give everyone else a chance to play. Well, that's great, isn't it? We have the headline slot, right? Surely that's a good thing. Absolutely not! This fact was a major source of contention between me and the committee members within the band. It meant that the audience was coming to see their friends play, then immediately buggering off as soon as they had fulfilled their social obligations. The opening acts would play to a capacity crowd, whereas we'd take to the stage half an hour before close and perform to the venue's bar staff and maybe someone's housemate who couldn't find a reliable excuse to leave sooner. As you can imagine, this did not sit well with me. Our music was good, let the people hear it! Context well and truly set, this story takes place one fateful night at the Students' Union. Livestock was hosting a gig night for any and all musicians who wished to play, but the best was yet to come. A representative, or scout, from an insanely popular local music venue was going to be there. He was hoping to find some acts to support their headline live band at said venue. I bet they would have more than 5 people watching them. About a week before the event, I asked the Livestock president, my singer, that we be placed earlier just once so people could actually watch us perform. He repeated the same old shtick about
giving everyone else chances.
Yes, so why not let us have a chance?
We can't be seen to be giving ourselves the best slots just because we're the committee.
That'd be fine, but we never get the good slots. After a couple of days of my relentless badgering, or bloody-minded stubbornness, delete as applicable, I was pleased, nay, ecstatic, to hear that my gripes had not only been received, but also heard. We weren't last! The president even made a joke showing me the bill on the night, how there were 2 acts on after us, and asked if I was happy. Yes, absolutely! Sure, we were still the 8th act on, but it's better than... You get the idea. Imagine my surprise and dismay to arrive on the night and find we had been relegated to headline once again! Words cannot even... I wouldn't have minded. That's a lie, I probably would have minded. I was incredibly frustrated at this point. But it wasn't even as if the people going on before us hadn't already been on before us before. I shan't bore you with my choice words to the Livestock president. I took to the bar and grabbed a drink, in keeping with the stereotype of both a musician and a university student. Enter Joe. Have you met Joe? He's a good friend of mine and drummer in my current backing band, the Flashhearts. Yes, I make music as well as talk about it. Click the little eye in the corner and check it out, or wherever it is. Over here, I think. Joe came over to me and asked if I wanted to sing with his band, called Onion. I'd been chatting to Joe for a while. He was a friendly chap and, funny enough, was on the same uni course as me just a year below. I'd met the individual members of Onion and seen them play a couple of times. They did instrumental versions of popular rock and indie songs as they didn't yet have a singer. Their guitarist in particular stood out to me as he had this awesome star-shaped guitar. Very cool. Yeah, Joe mate, sign me up. When are you playing? What do you want me to sing? They were on in about 30 minutes time of him asking, and they wanted me to sing Sunshine of Your Love. Sweet! Cream! 30 minutes and another drink later and I was on stage with 3 men with whom I had never performed, rehearsed or even jammed before. It was so much fun. I left the stage after one song and they continued with their instrumentals. It was 7:30. I wasn't on stage again for another 3 hours, so I did what any self-respecting rocker would do with time to kill. I went back to the bar. At this point I need to say, I do not advocate or condone getting hammered when you get on stage. Ever. That's one of Wild's top tips for performing right there. The number of times in which it went right for me is significantly fewer than the times it went horrendously wrong, and most of the time it only went right by sheer luck. There's a reason Frank Zappa demanded his band to be sober when performing. I have learnt. I rarely touch any alcohol during my first set at all these days, and will generally only have one during my second. Call it dedication to my craft. Not that I was actually on stage with Your Father's Fault that night. The boxes that made up the performance area were not big enough to fit us all on, so when 10:30 finally rolled around, I was performing in front and slightly to one side of the stage. We were once again playing to a big old crowd of barely anyone, and I wish I was exaggerating. I was probably a dozen double socos down by now, so it was a wonder I could stand, let alone strum. Nonetheless, we went straight into our first song. I didn't actually need to come in for a few bars, so I took a deep breath and tried to remember my first chord. It was not easy. Looking down, I had 2 right arms, but that was okay because I also had 2 guitars. The next 10 minutes were a blur. The whole time, drunken amicability fought for the position of leading emotion against general disgruntlement at being the unseen headline act once again. The last thing I remember was my guitar solo. I had 1 solo in the whole catalogue of originals we played, and by damn it, I was going to enjoy it. No one else was there to, after all. I remember going into the solo and over-egging it as much as I could. I'm talking windmill arm, headbanging so low I nearly hit the floor with my forehead, throwing the guitar in the air, bending the string until it nearly snapped. An evening of pent-up frustration being let out in possibly the least artistic and articulate way possible. I hit all the notes, it was visually just a little tasteless. I started to second guess myself after a full 30 seconds of this performance. Besides, I was getting tired. 20 units of whiskey liqueur and 4 hours of waiting around harbouring low-key immature resentment can do that to a lad. The singer was glaring at me with this look of unbridled disgust. He probably would have been happier if I'd just taken down my trousers and squeezed one out on the floor. Incentivised, I redoubled my efforts to go full guitar dick. I remember nothing after making that decision. I have since apologised to the band, credit to them, they were very good about it. I was a dick back then. I got better. Don't be the dick in the band. Don't. Remember this scout who was milling around at the event? Turns out that Your Father's Fault did not get a slot on the upcoming gig night. Hilarious irony is that not only did I get a slot with the band with whom I'd sung only 1 song, but the lead guitarist from Father got a slot with the other band he performed with that night as well. Be sure to subscribe and hit that bell to be notified when I upload that story time next week.